the committee of the law, rule, and ethics, and of the land use committee to take a good hard look at the proposals scheduled to be on the ballot for charter revision. Let me just give you two very quick comments, although I don't think I'll be as quick as I should be. The first one is that we received about a year or two ago from the Corporation Council of the City of New York, as did every community board, a letter advising us, without any citation of authority at all, which is the first time I've ever seen that, that we are not allowed to engage in a vote or the like as a community or a community board. That we are limited in what we can do as a board, but as individuals, our First Amendment rights are protected. Now, that was in order for us not to speak and address issues that the de Blasio administration, so I guess it was 4 years ago.
Well, specifically term limits.
Term limits. And they just didn't want us to talk. So what we are going to do is take a look and talk among ourselves as to what we think of these proposals. The meeting will then be adjourned. It is my hope that a few of us can have a conversation outside of the premises of the office so that they cannot claim that we are using city facilities for this purpose. And as individuals who are members of the board, we will exercise our First Amendment rights to say we are for or against any of these proposals. I will tell you that I've looked at it and I don't see how they would have a claim otherwise, but you will hear protesting from the city administration, so you should know that. That's number one. And I'm not talking about the merits. Number two, what is the process that all of this is going through? There are basically two ways in which a charter revision can be proposed. One is by a mayoral commission appointed entirely by the mayor, having the right automatically, if the majority of the commissioners vote for it, to put it on the ballot for the electorate. The other way is the New York City Council can initiate a change. And in theory, at least, the members of the public, by a voting ballot proposal with enough signatures and enough coordination, can put one on. In the history, or at least the recent history of the city of New York, these proposals have been put on by the administration then running it, and they are usually heavily financed and usually heavily lobbied by special interests. This one is no exception. All right, my own editorial comment. Let me go to a further editorial comment, which is based on fact. We were one of 2 or 3 community boards that sent a representative, me, to address the Charter Revision Commission. I drove to Staten Island to speak to them. I got there, I was told, you have 3 minutes. There was nobody else in the room other than the members. You have 3 minutes. I recognized a few of them, and I know one of them is a major real estate development consulting firm. That's how you get things done in the real estate business. You consult. Who was a key member of the de Blasio administration and a host of other positions, including the city planning commission that wanted to do away with SNAD. Okay? That is the nature of these kind of things. They are wired from the get-go, in my opinion. And I think that's the opinion of most people who know the process. This one is particularly troublesome to me. It starts with continuing a false premise. The false premise at the base of this and of other actions taken by this administration and its predecessor.
You know very well at the Balmain show this afternoon. Why don't we roll a clip and talk about it?
Was that everybody understood there was a single definition of the term affordable housing. There is not. So let me start, for the benefit of those who are not aware of it, as follows. The term affordable housing was basically coined by United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. It is a federal standard primarily, and it operates on the basis of what is known as the area median income. Okay? The AIM is calculated for New York City, and this is one of the significant problems with it. Let me just get rid of this. I'm in a meeting, I'll have to call you later. The AMI is calculated by including for the definition of what the average median income for residents of the city of New York by adding in such nice.
Wait, are you gonna bust her?
Average places as Scarsdale, New Rochelle, Roslyn, Great Neck, places that distort the income from the get-go. So that if you took those out of it, you'd have some resemblance of a citywide income. But that's not relevant, because what is affordable to the people who live in the Riverdale section of our community is not true of the people who live in the Woodlawn section of the community, let alone in the South Bronx. People need to know that the numbers are not accurate and they are manipulated by developers. Understand, I'm not anti-development. I make my living representing developers. They all know my views. I separate my legal business from my personal viewpoint. But let me be very clear about it. What we have today is a construction of housing terms that allows for the following. There are loads of buildings in the city of New York, starting with the two buildings that are visible from the Major Deegan Expressway as you are in the South Bronx, which are the Brookfield buildings, that have a small portion of them are true affordable by any stretch of the imagination, and the rest are not affordable to anyone in the South Bronx. There are buildings in Manhattan, luxury buildings facing the Hudson River, in fact, that have 10 apartments in them that are under $3,000 a month. And the rest of the 200 buildings are in excess of 4 and 5 and 6,000 a month. They are all deemed affordable.
They'll unfreeze soon. That's been happening lately.
recently wrote us a letter in which he commented on these bills, and to my amazement, came up with exactly the same view as those of us who have specific history in the housing arena. Let me be clear. I am, and for the past roughly 20 years, have been the governor's designee on the New York City Housing Development Corporation, the New York City entity that lends the money for most of the affordable housing in New York City. I am a champion of affordable housing, but what is really affordable and what does some good? This is a problem that we have here. What we have here is, in the old-fashioned words, log rolling. It is an attempt to go through and make additional changes to benefit a small segment of the real estate industry at the expense of people who walk around and say, I need affordable shelter. I can't afford on $50,000 a year or $100,000 a year income to pay $4,000 and $5,000 for one bedroom apartment. I need it cheaper. And instead of trying to do the obvious, which is to lower the costs, and let me just give you a bit of information on that. As Commissioner of Buildings in the 60s, I condemned a significant number of homes in the city of New York because the developers refused to live up to code. They were fire traps. The building inspectors inspected them, the fire inspectors inspected them, the Department of Investigations inspected them, and all agreed these buildings need major work. If you look through Google, you will find that among those who I had to cite was my in-laws, because they own one of those buildings. That was a big deal at the time. The point is, you cannot have what we had as a benefit for the last 30 years. Because what happened after those buildings were ordered vacated was they were burned down to collect the fire insurance. And there you have the story about the, became a book and a movie, The Bronx is Burning. Those properties became city property. And the result was that the city of New York was able to provide essentially free or cheap land for developers to develop without one of the major cost elements of construction, land costs. They didn't have to go look for the land. There was plenty of land to use. Instead of looking the same way, but without burning down the buildings, they do this thing. There is an awful lot of land available in this town. Go over on the Hutchinson River Parkway, going south, and you will see New York State Mental Hospital. It's alongside the Hutchinson River Park. It's empty. It's been condemned for years. Instead of it being used for housing or the like, in conjunction with newly constructed transportation elements, where the New York Central Railroad will be able, where Metro North trains will be able to take you in from the East Bronx to Grand Central in 18 minutes. And that's been timed out in 18 minutes. Instead of using it to build housing alongside those tracks with a decent view in the park areas and the like, it sits. There are other similar properties throughout the city of New York, the junkyards that exist all over some of the areas alongside of railroad tracks and the like. We can do it. There's not a will. So what is being done instead is to induce the developers to do anything. You create these kind of fictions of affordable housing, we'll give you some money, or we'll lend you the money to build it more cheaply, or we'll give you extra zoning. And that's the biggest one there. What this proposes to do is to take away, these proposals intend to do is to take away from the only current representatives that have authority to say no, namely the elected members of the city council and the borough presidents, the authority to say no. Now, let's see how that system works. Over and over and over again, you will read, you will hear that council member X from the Y community said, I am opposing this bill for the proposal of a development in my district unless you agree to provide X, whatever X benefit is generated up from the community. And a negotiation occurs and it then is done. These proposals take the council completely out of the land use proposal and put it in the hands of mayoral appointees. Now, if you have watched the performance of mayoral appointees for the last 12 years and you rate them, I don't think you're going to have much problem coming to an appropriate conclusion. That's what this is all about. It is an attempt as the last gasp of the most corrupt administration in the modern history of the city of New York, a term I have used previously, to try and help their friends on the way out of the door. That's my view of the subject. Others are much kinder than I am. They say, this is not a good idea. Forget the personalities, look at the idea and say, does it make sense to remove from the process of construction all elected local representatives? A mayor is a very powerful individual in this town under the city charter. A city council member probably would have very little influence, but for an agreement that they have, it's not official, but among the city council members. You as Councilman A representing District A, if you are opposed to a measure, even though I represent District X, I will support your right. You should support mine, except if there's a special circumstance. And that is the practice. And that is what gives members of the council some teeth. If you have faith in your council person, you will have that benefit. If you do not, throw the hell out. That's my take on this. You may have a different take, Marty.
Well, I have many issues, as you're aware. First of all, I'm most distressed with the abuse of the term affordable housing. There is need for housing, no question about it. What this we're talking about is giving license to developers for middle-class housing, because the people who can't afford $3,000 a month apartments aren't being treated at all, and there are many of them. And this strikes me as a total front, which they try under the whole idea of housing, city of yes housing. They call it affordable housing, everyone's in favor of it, but when it comes to helping real people, I don't see that it does. It helps developers. That's that there's an elected official who seems to be taking over all the power. That's horrendous, and yet that's exactly what's happening here. In our city, a mayor, this mayor, the next mayor, is suddenly taking over all of the power. And your comment about elected officials are being totally wiped out. And I fully agree with that concept also. So those are my two major concerns over this farce. One third one is that what's being given to the public in terms of summary statements is totally irrelevant to what's actually being voted on. So if you have a 5-10 page item, this is what we're talking about, and a summary of a paragraph, you certainly are not telling the public what they're voting for. And that, I think, is a subterfuge of the worst kind.
Questions, comments, anyone? Yes, ma'am.
What can we do about it?
You'll do it.
Well, you can vote.
Oh, and that I can vote.
We're not.
And vote no.
Well,
It's no, no.
let me jump back.
But
Let me jump back.
obviously,
Leo also has.
All right, let's do Lee. Lee,
Did you recognize me, Chuck?
yes,
Okay, I want to address your issue about affordability and the AMI. The AMI is only necessary when HUD, federal dollars are involved. If there's city and state and or a mixture of private, you don't have to use the AMI. And when I was at the Manhattan BP's office, I was working with Community Board 11 East Harlem, which had a similar issue to what we're addressing now about affordability. And I told them that they should push in the ULER process to have the income generated by census tract, which city planning maintains, the census tract of every community board. They did follow through, but the city council ignored them. But I think maybe the times have changed and we can go for that strategy and say if there's no federal dollars, why not use local census tract income data? And the other thing, FYI, there are 2 instances where the local community board, the local city council member is opposed to an affordable housing project and the city council ignore them. One was very recently in the Bronx about the affordable housing for former prisoners who were going to be put in the I think in I forget her name, Moramato district. She was opposed to it and they ignored her and they approved the project. Another one was in the Lower East Side with Margarita Lopez, which was about 20 years ago. And she did not approve affordable housing. But the community board, the city council ignored her and they approved the project.
sure, if you can come over now, we'll finish by 7 o'clock, so we'll be out here at 7:15. Good, come on down. I'd love to hear from you. Yes. Farah, let him on. What? Farah? Hold on.
Speaker, you mean? You want him on speaker? Hello?
Hey, I was calling because I wasn't sure if I was supposed to, because we never confirmed it, if I was coming by to speak a little more about the charter proposals.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay, so then if you want, you can text me a Zoom link and I can hop on. I'm in the car driving, but I can hop on virtually.
Okay, I will do that.
Waiting to please.
Yeah. Let me go do that.
Jody, hold on just a moment. We're gonna try and patch in, Eric to the.
That's great. Thank you.
thanks for sharing, Lee.
Chuck,
I'm sending it to him
I
now.
raised my hand. I just.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, while we're waiting for Eric to come on board, let's listen to, Bob Bender, who helped us put this letter together.
Undisclosed. Go ahead.
Our secret letter, yes. Well, first of all, as Marty said, and you said as well, Chuck, these proposals would consolidate so much power in the office of the mayor. He controls the Board of Standards and Appeals. He controls the City Planning Commission. All these entities that are being proposed to replace the city council are mayoral entities. Honestly, I don't care if Mother Teresa were the mayor. This is too much power to be in one office. And the opportunities for all kinds of backroom dealing and, you know, I mean, you don't have to spell it out. We've already seen it in action, in recent times. It's, you know, do you want somebody who lives in your community, who's on the city council, to be making decisions, or do you want a mayor who possibly has never even been to your community, never even been to your district, to be making these decisions? The other problem I have with this is that, you know, the whole argument behind this is what it's going to do for affordable housing. As you've discussed here and many times before, the whole concept of affordable housing is questionable. Nobody seems to have a single definition of it. And nowhere in any of these proposals is there anything that indicates what percentage of affordable housing there would be in exchange for these benefits to developers to build bigger buildings or you know, or different, to do whatever they want to do, basically. And this is all in the name of an undisclosed percentage of affordable housing. It's, you know, you're buying a pig in a poke, as the expression goes, if you vote for this thing.
We have that local representative with us. Councilmember Dinowitz, you're on.
Hello, Bob. Thanks, Chuck. Bob, I think you said it really well. Consolidating all this power into one person who does not know the neighborhood is inherently problematic, whether or not it's Mother Teresa. And I think that's absolutely right. There is one, and you're also right that a number of the proposals do not require all of the units to be subsidized. And I've started using the word subsidized instead of affordable. One of the examples I gave, I started using when I'm doing this presentation elsewhere, or the presentation you saw. We have a new building on Bryant Avenue in the Bronx. 12 one-bedroom apartments, $3,050 a month. It's considered affordable because the construction received government subsidies. It's on Housing Connect. It's on Housing Connect and everything. And I like to contrast that with the development that we are getting on 231st and Broadway, where something like the most inexpensive apartment is like $5 and change a month, and like for $7 and change, you can get a 3-bedroom apartment rent. And the highest is like 1,000 or 2,000 something, depending on your income. And so when we have the ability to fight for affordability, we do it. That the mayor, or when the BSA or these bureaucratic boards approve things, they don't fight for the affordability, they financing in place. And like, that's kind of it. Bob, there is one thing, which is the mandatory inclusionary housing, where it does, that's where a certain percentage of the units are set aside. I think that's a little more strict in its what percentage needs to be affordable, whatever that means. But you know, again, it's like the rest. If the rest are market rate housing, it doesn't feed into the affordability issue.
Let me, if I may, just give you a piece of information to just supplement what Eric said. The New York City Housing Authority is an entity as to which each of you has your own opinions. But the New York City Housing Authority has been trying to get out from under its dreadful reputation, and well-earned as dreadful reputation, by trying to figure out ways in which it can deal with the buildings it has without doing three things. Without adding any state or local money to speak of. 2, without adjusting the apartments. There are people there who had a 5-member family, now a 1-person widow, and they're still in the 3-bedroom apartment at a low number. Whereas people need apartments. You don't throw them out, but you give them first crack at the smaller apartment as it opens up in the same building, as it inevitably does, or in an adjacent building. And number 3, they do not take into account the community at all in terms of how they lay out the area and the like. So to illustrate, there is a thing now called infill. If you go down to any one of the local housing authority projects, you will see that by planning, each of them has a green area somewhere in the premises, usually at the core of the units and developments. They now want to build unregistered, non-housing authority regulated rent apartments in the infill and let the people who are living in the other stuff have to go elsewhere to get a little sun, sit down and play or have a play area. This is just not the way you do things, and that's the kind of approach. Eric, I apologize, I interrupted you. Do you have anything else?
I think the very clear thing that I encourage people to do is say 2 through 4 are no good. I think people should vote no on them. And I know you as a board can't and wouldn't take a position, but I as a council member could say objectively, this is very objective. This is what they want to do, and they say it, that the local communities have too much power. Voting yes on 2, 3, and 4 will take away local power, because as you know, we work together. You guys have your review process, and then I vote on it, and that's throughout the city. And I just want to talk about some of the lies. They say that council members or certain community districts single-handedly stop development. I mean, we as a council have approved ULURPs totaling 150,000 new apartments since in this council since 2022. So we're building. It just isn't true. And in question number 2, the second part says the 12 community board districts that are producing the least housing, they're going to make it even easier to rezone and to build more there. And I just find 2 problems with that. One is community districts don't produce housing, developers and city agencies do. So it's a little bit of nonsense right there. And the second thing is, if you look at the map, some of the reasons that areas are not producing as much, the way they calculate it is by a percent growth or percent increase in housing. Is some of those areas, like I think Midtown West and the Upper West Side, are considered in these districts that are not producing enough housing. I don't think a serious person would say there's not enough housing there. It just means there's already a lot of housing there, and it's harder there to find spaces.
Crazy.
Just so you know, we are not in the lowest 12, but that doesn't mean in 5 years we won't be. And to remind you, question number 3 says, in areas, in this board district, areas as far east in the board district as Van Cortlandt Village, where you have some of those small homes, and as far west or north as the 256, the north between Riverdale and Broadway, we have those single family homes in the R3. What that provision says is, by approval of the City Planning Commission, they can build apartment buildings there instead of houses, 4-story or 45 feet high apartment buildings, which they consider to be a modest increase in housing. But it would essentially get rid of single, 2, and 3 family homes in New York City, or in my view, it could.
Eric, let me add again on the single family homes. New York City has a history of people, particularly governmental employees, as they move up, the teachers, the cops, the sandmen, and the like, looking for the opportunity to get out of the apartment and into the house. That's an ambition of many, many, many people.
Yeah.
Many of those people are minorities, and they increasingly are taking up the percentage of acquiring homes. They are finally getting to the point where they can afford them. They are finally getting to the point where they have the independence and the means and the aspirations to be fulfilled by single
Yeah.
family. And now all of a sudden, single family homes are bad.
Well,
The
it's
civil
worth
rights
looking
law
at.
violation here. In
Mhm.
my view, there's a civil rights law violation here that ought to be pressed, because I think this is something that the Federal Civil Rights Department ought to do. And I have given serious thought as an individual to requesting the president to have the Civil Rights Division come in and deal with this issue.
Yeah.
All he needs, to my knowledge, all he needs is one invitation, and he'd be happy to do it. So,
There's just a little more context. That one, in terms of particularly the Black community, what we've been trying to address in the city council, and I believe the attorney general is deed theft. And this is something that's particularly harming Black homeowners. It's exactly what it sounds, deed theft. And these are individuals or family who have invested their time, money, and livelihood into generational wealth, which is what I think we all want in New York City. And they are already being harmed by policies that aren't strong enough for them. So there's one. But two, more broadly, development is, if you look at the development that's going up, let's take the case of any homeowner. They own their home. You have a block of homeowners. What they're being knocked down to build are small apartments, studios, and one bedrooms. In the case of subsidized building, studios and one bedroom, 70%, that are all rental. They aren't building as many homeownership opportunities for New Yorkers. And that is, again, in contrast to what we are trying to do in the council. Like, when you give us the ability, we pass legislation on deed theft. We pass ULURPs that include homeownership provisions. We pass budget provisions which help new homeowners put their first down payment down on that new home. And that's one of the great things about our city, is the diversity of housing options, this ability to rent for however long. And if you want to buy something, or you want to buy a small home, or heck, if you want to live in the most congested area of New York City, you can do that. And what the mayor wants to do is take away all options from the local community, all those options away from us, and just build to how he and his appointees see fit. Because, and I want you to watch out for that. The questions, and tell your friends, the questions sound really good. But what they actually do is simply authorize boards that are wholly or majority appointed by the mayor to approve land use applications at the expense of the community. That's all it is.
Laura,
I want to say that Attorney Jack Lester has filed suit. I believe today there was a press conference about it, and it's the Part B lawsuit for the city of Yes. Same attorneys, many of the same petitioners, and the suit, he's taking legal action against the city of New York, Mayor Eric Adams, New York City Charter Revision Commission, and the New York City Board of Elections.
For the city of Yes, or for these ballot proposals?
I think they froze.
Stop something from going on. But according to the attorney, that's what will happen. Should we be successful, the ballot questions will be invalidated. And I just want to say, we were talking about Van Cortlandt Village, which unfortunately has so many low scale, low density, but is zoned R6 in many areas. According to the papers I got today, question 3 will allow for 45-foot tall apartment buildings at a 2.0 FAR in all R1 through R5 zones. So, I mean, we've had the problem with low density in R6s. This is R1 through R5, the equivalent of R5 zoning. Clearly targets low density 1 and 2 family neighborhoods.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm reading from the,
Yeah.
things.
But Laura, this is what they want, and this is what they say. And like, it's not a secret. It doesn't make them evil. This is what they say out loud. A developer may look at a house in Van Cortlandt Village zoned for R6, and they may say, you know, it's not worth it for me to buy that property, knock down the home, and build to the max for R6. But under this proposal, in an R6, you could build 30% more than what is allowed, and that will be approved. That's not even a rezoning. That's approved by the City Planning Commission. And so it is, even in those instances where, yeah, right now they could already build more, but they're not. They're
But they
saying
can't do that in
30%
R1 too.
more. They're saying they can build. Yeah, they'll be more incentivized. Oh, sorry, for the R6, they'll be more incentivized to do that. And yes, in the R1, R2, 45-foot tall buildings, absolutely.
So that's, you know, just, it's really, very, very scary to have, or like what Bob Bender and what everybody has been saying, to have no recourse, to reduce community boards to nothing, to, just destroy, you know, what the lawyer was saying, and I mean, I don't know how to evaluate this. If we do not file this lawsuit, the subsequent adoption of these ballot questions without following state law would have the immediate effect of undermining environmental laws across New York. He's saying that these require to have environmental impacts and other things. They can't just put this up like this and then not have another public hearing on it. You know, he has process and environmental law. And that all across New York, other municipalities and even the state government can point to this precedent to convince the court system that filing of an EIS mandating appropriate mitigation, consideration of alternatives, and public disclosure is no longer necessary. I mean, this really bombs an entire system. It just, it's unbelievable.
Let me, if I may, Steve. Sharita, I see you're on. You have your hands
Oh,
up.
I was next, Chuck.
Hang on, Judy. Sharita, this is the former chair of the New York City Landmarks Commission.
Yes,
And
Mr. Chair, I deferred to Jody because she was on before me. She raised her hand, and as board members for many years at the Nature Preservancy, I defer to her first.
Well,
All
thank you
right.
very much. I also have a very unique position. So first of all, for the record, I am not a member of the community board, so I am not constrained by the things that Chuck mentioned. Two, the Friends of Spite and Dival is fully grassroots. We are not a 501c3. We have no board. It is all at my discretion. So I have no constraints in saying anything. With that, I am voting no on those proposals. The whole affordable housing, I think the big problem right now is if these stay in, people see affordable housing and automatically say yes. And they don't read, and the descriptions are a bit deceiving, just like almost all ballot proposals are. They don't really describe what this does. So I have redefined affordable housing as affordable for developers, not residents. And what people really want are reasonable rents. And that's not what any of what is being built really is delivering for most of the units. The 1.4% vacancy rate that was thrown around by the City Planning Commission was a partial truth. It was of rental units available for immediate move-in. That was about 31,000 units. They didn't mention the second half of the sentence that said there were almost 250,000 units that were held off the market for one reason or another. And they also didn't mention the 150,000 units that Eric did mention. So one of the most shocking things, though, was during one of the hearings, Dan Garadnik literally answered a man from Queens who said his 20-something-year-old son would like to move into the same neighborhood that he grew into, you know, move out from home and move into the same neighborhood. and there was nothing affordable for him. And Dan literally said, well, we're not building it for the people who live here. We're building it to bring more people in. And if it was just blatant, like, hey, we just want more tax dollars from, you know, they literally said it for Hudson Yards. They're doing over $2 billion to the developer there, and said it's because it's going to bring in higher paying residents with higher pay who will have higher incomes, will pay more taxes, and will get more money for property taxes. So that's my preamble to it. I just had a couple of things of the notes. I haven't been actually able to find the legislative text. There's a lot of summaries of it, but the only legislative text I found was for Proposal 1, which is the statewide, which I will also vote no for, because they will be tearing up 323 acres in Essex County for ski recreational use. And they didn't literally say in the Adirondack Mountain Preserve. They just said Essex County. And I was like, where's that? Oh, the Adirondacks. So, as a trying to get information out to the community, one, I would love to see the actual legislative text for this. Happy to provide links to people for it and say vote no. Proposal number 3 says expanded ULURP, which scares me very much, because ULURP is already allowing much environmental degradation, and to make it even easier to skip the process and just say no impacts, that's really kind of frightening. And number 4, creating that board, well, the 3 people on it are the ones who already would have submitted their comments in favor or against. So it's giving them an unfair second chance to come back in and force their will upon the community. And I just think overall, this is, which needs to be said out loud. There was a lot of talk about, oh, democracy will die if certain things happen. Well, this is eliminating checks and balances. It's eliminating representation by elected officials. You know, we elect people to represent us in these consolidated bodies, and it's taking our voice away. And I just think that there needs to be an education campaign, which the community board, I believe, could do without saying vote yes or no. But there needs to be something to give out to people that says, here's what it says, but this is what will happen if you vote yes. Because it's very fluffy on Ballotpedia about what these proposals are. So I will vote no. I encourage everybody who participates in democracy to use your vote to vote no on these proposals. And if there's anything else people want me to say, you can text me privately. Thank you.
In a few minutes.
25 minutes left on the meeting.
All right. Sharita,
Yes, sir.
you're on.
I'll try to be brief, knowing that you've only got 45 minutes, and I appreciate very much that you're having this joint meeting. And I want to also thank our council member who stood up for the community during City of Yes and made very important changes to limit the impact on SNAD and on our low density district. So I thank him. I too, I'm speaking personally. I am chair of the Riverdale Nature Preservancy, but the board has not met to discuss the ballot proposals. We waited until the Board of Elections actually put them forward. And we had our garden tours last month. But the key thing is I will be voting against these proposals because to me, they boil down to one thing. And it is, as Jody said, this is taking away the voice of the community, not in the ULURP type process, because they are remaining to allow the community boards to review and advise, but taking away the voice of the community in the form of its city council representatives is completely unacceptable, simply cannot stand. And that is the only thing that this legislation does. It produces no affordable housing. Taking 2 months out of the public review process will not fund the 1.5 to 2 years of pre-work that has to be done by a developer. It will not change the fact that certain areas are very expensive to acquire land, do construction, and try to actually sell or rent out the units. This is very expensive to try to accomplish in many neighborhoods, and it is the wrong direction. They need to be looking at ways to actually lower the costs of construction, because that's where the bulk of the money is. They need to look for the ways to provide the incentives and support for this type of construction, and taking away our personal voices through our representatives on the city council is just completely unacceptable. I will be supporting changing the elections to the even years, because I do think that does increase democracy, hopefully. But thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I call on the next person, let me tell you where we are. The Corporation Council under de Blasio sent us a letter saying, and I said this a few moments ago, the number of people have since joined, saying that community boards cannot take a position on an issue like this. And therefore, at 7 p.m. precisely, this committee, jointly with Land, Law, Rules and Ethics, will adjourn. And the good citizens of this community, acting as individuals, will have a conversation among themselves. At that point, those who would like to can join several of us in the hallway, not on the premises of the community board, where I have prepared, together with a few of my colleagues, a letter to the Riverdale Press, making clear our views as individuals who happen to be members of the community and or of the community board. I believe the Riverdale Press is attuned to the issue. This is something that I must tell you I don't like doing, and I'll tell you why. I have no compunction personally of standing up. I think this is a despicable way of trying to limit free speech. It is something that is totally Trumpian, and I am not for that. But this is just awful. But that is what they try to do to achieve a result that is for the benefit of a select few and not for the people and not for the community. That's where we are. Stephen.
So I have one question and one comment. The question is, with respect to these charter amendment proposals, where SNAD would fall if they were adopted. What would the impact be on the enforcement of SNAD? And I'm not, when I say the enforcement, I don't mean the on the ground enforcement by the Department of Buildings. I mean, would it have legal effect after these proposals were adopted? So that's questions. Others more versed than I.
I don't think this is seriously directly aimed at SNAD. What this can do through the back door is make even more attractive the destruction of SNAD by encouraging the development of those properties one by one by one. That's what City of Yes does by saying you can put in your backyard a house for your mother-in-law who happens to be somebody you never heard of but can get rent from.
But do those rules trump the permission to develop or going to the appeals board or bypassing?
I'm not sure. I don't know where they're going to come out. The underlying legislation is much more specific in the conveyance of power than the questions that are posed. That's true across the board, Marty.
City of Yes, we have its way to get rid of SNAD. I think city council protected it, sort of think that they are tamed and won't go after it. Yeah, I think she was naive. They're gonna go after it. But more important than that, who's going to enforce it? Because the Department of Buildings does diddly now. Complaint after complaint, pictures after pictures, witness statements after.
But that's a different issue, right?
It's the same issue. There's no SNAD.
let me tell you something. This is personal experience and no one can deny it. I put 37 of these folks in jail on a lesser record than the stuff that's been accumulated so far. Because what this does, what's going on in the Department of Buildings today, is if you are in a position that you can influence them, you keep them away, but you don't have to. Let me tell you what happened on one project. We called them in, the neighbors gave them photographs of before and after. They said, we will not consider the photographs. Dinowitz has been trying to get it done by legislation, but the leadership of these agencies today are such that you are not being aided by government, you're being used.
So the comment that I had as a member of the Law, Rules and Ethics Committee is that the memorandum dated September 13th, 2018 from the City Law Department that Marty has circulated that characterizes the community board's expression of an opinion up or down on a ballot proposal. I think it's questionable. I mean, it's just an opinion of a lawyer at the City Law Department, presumably in the appropriate bureau of the Law Department.
With no citation of authority anywhere.
So I think that it would be legitimate and responsible for the community board to decide that this is an instance in which we do want to express an opinion, notwithstanding a single, 7-year-old opinion of the City Law Department. And if that brings up the issue of whether this is a free speech issue, a right of people to express their opinion, I think it's an absolutely particularly good opportunity to put that issue, to make that a discussion. I think it would be good for the city. I think it would be good for community boards, and I think it's an important enough issue that I would feel perfectly happy and sanguine about issuing a resolution about this. And obviously, we have a chair of the board we have to discuss with. We have an executive committee, but I, for one, would suggest that this could be both a letter to the editor by individual citizens and also a resolution.
Ian, it took a good hard look at the underlying premise here. The only argument that holds any kind of order to support the Corporation Council is that you are using public facilities of the city of New York if you do it that way, which is why I said the committee will adjourn and we will not be using public facilities to do the same thing. But at the same time, I'd like to see a resolution, just as you do. I'll be happy to sponsor it, and I'm happy to be the defendant in it.
Well, the board,
Because I can't wait to take a deposition of the Corporation Council and find out which member of the city administration told him to do it. Okay, anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Madison Rosenstaff. I grew up in this community, but I don't live here anymore. But I work for the speaker now. And I wanted to say this while Jody was online. But we are doing a voter education effort throughout all of the 5 boroughs, and we actually have materials which we are giving out. Whether you want to take these materials right now or after we break, it's totally up to you. But we are going to all the community boards and throughout all the communities in general to do voter education on these ballot proposals. And I think everything that you all have been saying and Eric Dinowitz has said has been amazing. So
Thank you.
Do you have a card number?
I listen, I can get you as many as you want.
300 apartments.
I can get you 300, but right now I have this stack
Good,
and I can pass them out right now.
thank you.
I think Sharon,
Anyone else? I see a hand up, but I can't identify.
did you want to speak again? She had her hand
There's
up.
a young lady in the top left-hand corner. I think there's a hand up there. Am I wrong?
No, no hands up.
Okay, so we have nobody on the Zoom who wishes to speak. Madam Chair, the chair of the board is on. Do you have anything to add?
I'm gonna keep them.
Julie?
No, as long as you guys take your discussion out of the board office completely, and then we'll discuss everything else later. But it won't be a resolution from the board at this time until we speak. And the LRE is having a meeting before the exec meeting in October as well, before our next board meeting.
Oh,
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 7 o'clock.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn is on the table. I second it. Any discussion? All those in favor? Contrary minded, this
Oh.
meeting is now adjourned
Wait a minute.
on land use. Marty, adjourn it for LRE.
Okay.
all those in favor of adjourning the LRE meeting, please signify.
Yes.
No objection, we,
Now, my friend, there is a draft of a letter for the road.
Am I stopping the meeting now?
yes.
Yes.
Hold on.
If you would